Chilling tales for dark nights.
The following performance is a second-round entry in the 2016 Evil Idol competition, and you, the listener, get to help decide who wins. Like what you hear? Click the thumbs up. Don't care for it? Click the thumbs down. Good luck to all of our contestants.
Captain's Log by Reddit user Color the Books. Read by Matthew Cannon. For Chilling Tales for Dark Nights and the Evil Idol competition. A week ago, before I began hearing the knocking, I was walking along the beach, watching the waves break across the sand and sweep back into the surf. The day was sunny, and a pleasant breeze kept me from sweating. I'd been staying at a nearby hostel as I was traveling up the coast on one of those soul-searching journeys, and I was having a nice, quiet moment when I came across a small metallic object jutting up from the sand. Intrigued, I wiggled and pulled at it until it loosened and slipped out of the ground. It was a voice recorder. The thin, silvery kind used by morticians examining dissected bodies. I turned it over and was surprised to find it was still in one piece. It even had a tape inside. I must admit, I was a little excited. I'd never found buried treasure before. I headed back to the hostel, wondering where it might have come from. Was it dropped off the side of a tourist boat accidentally, or maybe it was the modern-day message in a bottle with a desperate plea for rescue from a desert island. When I made it back to the hostel, I locked myself in one of the available study rooms and replaced the rusted batteries with fresh ones. I pressed the rewind button and waited as the tape spun backwards in time, eventually coming to a jolting halt. Then, I pressed play. Captain's Log, September 29th, 2015, 2100 hours. This is Captain Smith of the SS Smith. To call today trying would be a bit of an understatement. We haven't even set sail, so to speak, and already the crew is at each other's throats. Someone cheated at cards the other night, and the bad blood hasn't died down. I broke up several pushing matches. My damn throat's raw from having to yell at all these idiots all day. I needed a lozenge and some sleep. Tomorrow, we depart. Meteorologists are telling me that we'll be sailing straight into a tropical storm with high chances of it becoming a hurricane. I've changed the route slightly, but it shouldn't be too bad. 3-meter waves are nothing we can't handle. Hopefully, the rest of the crew can all act like adults once the job starts. Signing off. Captain's Log, September 30th, 2015, 1700 hours. This is Captain Smith of the SS Smith. Today has been strange. This morning we departed. Things were fine. Uneasy stares between some of the crew, but everybody pulled their weight. Around 1400 hours, however, one of the crew members caught sight of a small passenger boat floating dead in the water. We hailed them on the radio, but there was no response. So, we sent a few out to recon, and what we found was unsettling. The ship looked fine, no outward damage, though there was an awful lot of water on the deck. Not uncommon, but strange given the lack of activity. We searched the craft briefly and found, hiding below deck in a cabinet, a small, emaciated boy, wearing only torn shorts and a little necklace with a bird shape tied to it. When we tried to retrieve him, he screamed at us to leave him, said that he was cursed, that the ship was cursed, and we would be cursed too. Poor kid was starved and dehydrated. Delusions like this aren't uncommon when you've been stranded. We brought him, kicking and screaming, on board the SS Smith, and I tried to ask him his name and how long he'd been there and where his parents were, but he just stared back at me. His eyes, ringed and bloodshot, looked like they'd seen as much as the oldest sailor amongst us. "You're all gonna die," he whispered, a lone tear sliding down his sunken cheek. "Why do you say that?" I asked, indulging his fantasy. "Because I shot it." "Shot what?" "The albatross," he said. "And now they won't leave." "They?" "My dad and my uncle and all the others without eyes." I felt shivers seize up the back of my neck. The kid really believed what he was saying. I took him below decks and gave him a bunk. Outside, the storm was kicking up, but the SS Smith had weathered storms much worse than this. I wasn't worried, and I'm still not worried. I'll hail the Coast Guard in the morning and see about getting someone to fly out here and pick up the kid. Maybe figure out what happened to the rest of his group. Signing off. Captain's Log, September 30th, 2015. This is Captain Smith of the SS Smith. It's currently 0100 hours, and things have been happening. The weather outside has worsened considerably, and I'm beginning to doubt the safety of our course. On top of that, several fights have broken out since we brought the boy on board. Most of them over cards, but a few over what a few of the crew have claimed to have seen in the water. I don't know who told them what the boy had said to me, but 3 of the crew claimed to have seen bodies in the water swimming around the ship. Impossible, I know. Nobody can swim 25 knots, let alone get within a few meters of the ship without getting dragged under. Even dolphins give us a pretty wide berth when we're moving at this speed. Regardless, this has made a few of the crew uneasy. I guess oceanic superstitions really do die hard. It wouldn't have been so hard to calm them down, except there's something else adding fuel to the terror. Something was knocking on the ship's hull. Something loud. Something heavy. I told the boys that it was just the anchor coming a bit loose in the rough seas, but they all saw through that lie quickly. We searched inside and out for the source of the knocking, but there was nothing. For now, I've chalked it up to faulty repairs. Probably a loose metal sheet somewhere in the bilge. Not a good thing to have heading into the storm at the rate we were, but not the worst thing either. Signing off. Captain's Log, October 1st, 2015, 0700 hours. This is Captain Smith of the SS Smith. We're in trouble. Tropical storm has picked up. Instruments are telling me it's now a Category 3 hurricane. If everything goes well, we'll only lose the shipping containers strapped to the deck. They can be retrieved later. To make matters worse, the crew responsible for sighting the bodies in the water last night have disappeared. Jonathan, Martin, and Reggie are all missing. All lifeboats are accounted for, all bunks have been checked. John was in charge during their watch. He's normally the level-headed, responsible one. I have a hard time believing they all fell overboard. And if we'd been attacked in the night, I wouldn't be standing here in the quarters talking to a small fucking box. I'd probably be up on the deck with a gun pointed at my head. So where the fuck have they gone? Our searches will continue for as long as they can, but we're sailing into a hurricane and soon we'll need all hands on deck to hold the ship together. Their fates will have to wait until we've weathered the storm. The boy, however, seems to know exactly where they are. The entire morning he's been screaming from his cabin that they were taken. I tried to question him further, but he was reduced to an inconsolable sobbing, and I don't have time to make him feel better. Not when the ship is going to be ripped apart, and that banging on the hull still hasn't gone away. To say it's beginning to get on my nerves would be a bit of a fucking understatement. Anyway, we're passing coordinates 25.0000 degrees north, 71.0000 degrees west right now, which isn't helping with the blooming superstitions among the crew. All we need to do is weather the storm. That's all we need to do. Just weather the storm. Signing off. Captain's Captain's log, October 1st, 2015. I don't know the time. I've locked myself in my cabin and barricaded the door. Something's happened to the crew, and almost to me. The storm has become a monster I'm not sure we'll survive. And my crew, we found Jonathan, Martin, and Reggie, or rather, they found us. We were on the bridge monitoring the storm when we saw three shapes climb over the sides of the ship and onto the deck. I ran out to them with lifelines in case a rogue wave hit, but stopped when I got close enough to see them in the storm's dim light. Their eyes were gone, and from their sockets hung strands of seaweed like dark tears made of the sea, swaying on the ocean's raging winds. Seawater poured onto the deck from their slacks, and from the sleeves of their shirts, and small crabs and other chitinous life fell and skittered over the sodden shoes. When the dead men moved, it's like they were alive, like they knew exactly what they were doing. John lunged for me, the seaweed spraying across his face, his yellow teeth stained with black sands of the ocean floor. But before he could get a hold, a wave crashed between us, vaulting me away down the deck in a rush of seawater. The slack in my line gave way and the wave receded, leaving me gasping for air against the chilled steel of the deck. When I looked up, John and the others were rushing the bridge, unimpeded by the rush of the waves. I unlocked my line and sprinted for the trap door below deck. From the control bridge, I heard screams echo over the rage of the storm. Saw the windows crack as bodies collided with the thick glass from within. The boy knew this was going to happen. The boy fucking knew. I raced below deck straight for the boy's cabin, and when I arrived, I found the boy hanging from a ceiling grate, his bird necklace digging into his blue throat. The words, "I'm sorry," were scratched onto the floor at his dangling feet. I closed his door and headed straight for my cabin. Now I sit here, maps of my beloved ocean spread out before me. Outside my door, I can hear them pulling and kicking, trying to get in. Oh, and look at that. Seawater is beginning to seep in. And something is still banging against the ship's hull. Banging and smashing in step with the pound of my dead crew's hands on my cabin door. Slow, relentless, unstopping, like destruction's own heartbeat. In God's name, have mercy. God's name, please. Have mercy. The tape ended in a hiss of static as I sat there in the study, staring at the small recorder. The next day, I took it to the local Coast Guard station and left my contact information in case they needed anything from me. A little while later, they called me, told me not to talk to anyone about what I'd heard. That was a bad idea, because now I can't stop thinking about it. About the horror in the captain's voice, about the images of his eyeless crew, about the knocking on the hull, which was loud enough to be heard in his logs. The knocking that follows me through my day. A hollow, godless sound. A sound I hear as I drive further up this coast. That I hear as the weather ahead now grows darker and darker.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to cast your vote for this contestant via a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. By doing so, you'll help us determine who will become the next permanent member of our voice acting team. At the close of voting on August 15th, based on your votes, the top 25 contestants will advance to the third round, which begins September 1st, based entirely on your votes. Thank you for voting and for helping to spread the word. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, host of Chilling Tales, the podcast, encouraging you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Tales for Dark Nights.